You know the music, and you know that means it's time for Wild Pitches with Aris. I'm Mick. Thanks for joining us here, talking all things Smokies. Haven't seen you in a while, dude. How you been?
Went to Greece for 20 days, so got pretty tan and celebrated Smokies championship the best way possible, right? By escaping the country.
Yeah, maybe that's a sign that, when the Smokies make the playoffs, you need to leave the mainland.
Went to the motherland instead. So
yeah, well, it was just an incredible run to the playoffs. I mean, I'm still just, I elated,
For sure, dude. And this is my first champion. This is my 9th year in minor league baseball, and last year was the first year that I ever made it to the playoffs, period.
Wow.
And to be within one game of it was super exciting. And who would have known that the mountain to climb was just me to leave when the postseason began?
Yeah. It was incredible. Just the entire process of the season, looking back. I mean, my time with the Smokies, we've lost every playoff series. I mean, look, 45 years ago was the last time they actually won. And I mean, that tells you something right now. I don't know if it's hard to lose 45 straight years. And you mean, I just kept saying at some point you're going to back into one, right? I mean, something that's just going to fall together for you. The league is only 8 teams now. It used to be 10. Just right. Like something. Yeah, I felt like last year the Cubs made decisions that kept the Smokies from having the best possible team, like taking Alexander Canario and then not replacing him with someone that could play center field was a big one. And then, pitching wise, you start to look at the rotation, and it's like guys are who you would expect to be there aren't there, for whatever reason. They had a pitch count or whatever. They did such a good job this year to manage Cade Horton's pitches so that he would be available twice in the playoffs. And then obviously I call them the South Bend Cavalry. Last year South Bend was in the playoffs. They ended up winning the championship. So you don't get any of those guys to help. And then they send up guys after that season was over. That didn't work out. It was a couple of pitchers, and those guys didn't have any success. And it's tough to make that jump and then come right in and, without having a few games. So the South Bend guys got there in that last series, and it all just fell together. I mean, like by the time we went into the playoffs, man, and I bought into, I think Nick Gates, our former beat writer with the Knoxville News Sentinel, is the guy that coined the phrase, the chokies. I just thought, well, it'd be another year we'll choke. Then I saw the rotation in the batting lineup, and I'm like, this is a really good team. And they just crushed everybody.
Yeah, and that South Bend Cavalry, as you said, that's made up of Kevin Alcantara, James Triantos, Christian Franklin, and Cubs minor league position player of the year, Moises Ballesteros.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't seem like it was that far away when this team was not winning a game at all. They couldn't buy a win. They lost 10 in a row. One of our biggest days that we have here at Smoky Stadium every year is our University of Tennessee themed baseball game.
Right.
And, we had a packed house ready to see the Smokies. This is a game that a lot of UT fans come to. They don't follow the Smokies. They don't know who the players are or anything, but they come to this annual game just because it's kind of fun and it depicts the whole Knoxville, East Tennessee vibe. And we trotted out a pitcher that wasn't a starting pitcher. It was a bullpen game.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a game that I think we lost like 7 or 9-0. And it's like, wow, like this is the best we got here for one of our biggest crowds of the year, and it was a little disappointing, but, just as you said, just like that, the switch turned on, these new players come in and made it into the playoffs. And it's crazy. You look at the box score, every single game, they had it in hand.
Yeah. I was there. I mean, just watching the way that they came together and they went into the playoffs, it was a dream come true. I mean, I couldn't have scripted it any better. You beat Chattanooga in the first round where they can't even score. You shut them down, a couple big innings, but, just take care of business. That's the team that, that the Smokies lost to in the first half. That was the team, that they were playing Michael Ryan's last series. They were just a first half thorn. And then in the second half, it was all Smokies, except then they had kind of that lull where no one was winning. And then, they kind of came together. But then you want to beat the best. And Kevin Randall, whose nickname is Smoke Randall, he's the manager of the Pensacola team. He's been with the Marlins a long time. He was a player in 2009 and 2010 when the Marlins AA affiliate was Jacksonville, and they beat the Smokies twice in a row. And now he's the manager and beat the Smokies last year. So there's just I don't know if it makes up for three, but he's such a nemesis. And I say that with all due respect. I think he's one of the best out there, at least in the Southern League. And to go out there and just throttle his team couldn't have been any better. Almost in that, like, if you're gonna win the championship and play the same team again, they had a very similar roster than what they had last year. Maybe not quite the star pitching, but they had Nunez at short, and then they had all those other position players, Fletcher Vance, who was the MVP last year, and all that. And then just to go in there and just wipe the floor with them, it was I couldn't have came up with a better. You realize, like, about the sixth inning, you're going to win the game on the broadcast, and you're sitting there like, okay, what am I going to say at the end of this? Other than I don't have to sweat this out.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. Something similar, I want to get your thoughts on it, was a couple days ago, Bryce Harper was celebrating his 31st birthday, and he was playing on his birthday, which is cool. It's in the middle of October. It's something very rare. Obviously, with that is a lot because it's a playoff game. It's game one of the NLCS. And he hits a home run, and then he crosses home plate, and he blows out his fingers like they're candles, And they asked him in the post-game presser, hey, was that something that you had planned out? If you're going to hit a home run, that was going to be your celebration? And he's like, no, it just kind of came to me rounding third base, And
right.
Who knows if that's fact or fiction? Maybe he did think about it a little bit, but he didn't really know what it was going to be. But he said that was kind of just off the cuff. He just did it while he was rounding third base, literally moments before it. He did it. So with you, obviously the Smokies have not won a championship, but you've been thinking about it for years upon years. And now with the game actually coming into fruition and you saying okay, we have this game in hand, we're going to win. Did you have something planned out a little bit before, or no?
Well, man, I got to tell you, it's like the fifth time that I've been the broadcaster and we've got to the championship series. And then last year was the first time we were ever a game away, and we had two chances to win and we didn't. That was so frustrating. But the worst one was 2010, just because I loved that team. They were 33 games over 500. There weren't lulls. They just kicked crap out of everybody, and they played the game the right way. So did this team, but this was more of a roller coaster, that team was, they had lost the year before, really weren't supposed to be there. It was their season, and then they blew it. And I don't know if I ever really got into the mindset of, okay, what am I going to say if they win it? So last year, they win the first game, and then we come back home and all we got to do is win a game. I wasn't comfortable with that roster last year because of the pitching. I like the position players, although we didn't really hit either. We hit some, but not like we did this year. And I thought about, if it happens, what am I going to say? So in game 3, we came back and we took the lead, and I thought, if we win, I got to kind of come up with something. And then obviously we ended up getting blown out. Fletcher Vance hit the grand slam, and that was kind of it, So this year, I was just like, okay, kind of building off of what I was thinking about last year. I knew I wanted to mention that the Smokies were atop the mountain, something that I wanted to say just because it's a team that's named after a mountain.
Smoky Mountains.
Yeah.
I see the picture you're painting.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I wanted it to include alone because in 2004, they were in a championship series and it got canceled because of Hurricane Ivan. And if you don't declare at the beginning of the series, hey, look, if this happens, it doesn't count. Like they had something similar happen. And Pensacola and Chattanooga were co-champions, but they said before the series, they were like, look, these games are going to count as a co-championship. So even though you're going to share it, you're going to win it out on the field. That didn't happen in 2004. And there really wasn't a champion. And on top of that, like Chris Allen said, the team president for the Smokies, he was like, there's only one champion, like you either win it on the field or you don't, and he's so right about that, I think. But to honor that team though, at the same time, I wanted to be like alone atop the Southern League.
This is very artistic.
Yeah. So it was like kind of, those were things that like I had thought about in the past and really hadn't thought about. It's not like for the entire year I'm thinking about it. I really, until we were in that, until I saw the pitching rotation at the beginning of the series, I thought we would probably lose again because, obviously that's what's happened. It's what most likely is going to happen every time you get in the playoffs, not just for this team, for any team.
Right.
And then I saw that and I thought, this is our year. And then all of these weird things started happening that led me to believe that this was our year. I'm getting messages from people saying, hey, good luck on the call. And, like I'm watching, and there's like too many of those, which never happened before, where people were really tuned in to like what was going to happen in this series. Like they were bought into it and they believed that this was the year, like the 45 years. So anyhow, we get into like the 6th inning. Then Smokey starts scoring and scoring and scoring. Really, after BJ hit the home run, the 3-run homer, I thought we're not losing this. And then the team just kept pouring it on. So I started to kind of just jot down some stuff that I knew I needed to do. Like, you didn't want to miss. And this is probably the best place to talk about this because I mean, you're either going to be here and listen or you're going to be like, well, I don't give a crap, but for this podcast, so I'm thinking like I don't want to screw this up because this is something that the team's going to have for 45 years. It took 45 years to get here. So this is the longest drought in franchise history. It's the second longest drought in minor league baseball. It's probably the longest drought in the Southern League's history too. I can't imagine any other team went 45 years playing continuously and not winning. So I knew I wanted to make sure that I differentiated between on top of the mountain and on top of the mountain alone. And then, and I didn't want to, I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to yell and scream, right? I didn't want to yell and scream and then no one know what I was saying, I really wanted to like articulate everything I was saying, so I remember thinking like, just slow it down so that it's like, okay, people can go back and listen and they know what I'm talking about. So those were important. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that it was 45 years and then also hit the year. And then it just kind of came together, like the crazy thing is like, I got through the beginning of it. And I've thought about it so many times since, just kind of reliving the moment and like, going through everything and thinking about, and I get to the end and I'm like, like they just won the Southern League. Like we just won. And it's like, yeah, and then I'm kind of like, is that the end of the call? In my mind, it was. And then I'm like, well, wait a second. If if there's no what do you say, it's still going, So I get to that and I'm like, oh yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, you better finish this. And then I go, I'm like, and out of nowhere, like, they give the score, sweep away our biggest nemesis, which I'm so glad I said. I don't know where that came from. It just popped into my head.
It just happened. Yeah.
It just came in there. And then, obviously the patented, what do you say, which if you listen to our broadcasts have been coming out since I started, and, something that I've been doing since I got into broadcasting. So
T-shirts on sale.
Yeah, T-shirts on sale.
The T-shirts show up and the championship shows up.
Huh? I know that could be it too. I met the guy that designed it, and then they're already like, well, what do you want to do next time? Like, let's sell these out first, see if anybody buys them. I don't know. I was glad when people were like writing, "Hey, man, great call" and stuff like that, because that was important to me. I mean, just being here for so long, you just don't want to mess that up. And the other thing too was I wanted it to be like a Tennessee call, it's a hometown radio call. I'm not trying to sound like every vanilla broadcaster that calls a game on TV. I wanted it to sound like our guy in East Tennessee that's on the Sports Animal and on the Smokies app. And so, I dropped them boys from Tennessee, and I'm so glad I did. A couple of people were like, man, I love that. So I don't even know where that came from, but it just came,
That's a flavor to it. It makes it different, just as you said. You're not trying to be like Joe Buck just saying Smokies win.
Yeah, 45 years and the Smokies win, and you're out of there. Like, first off, there's no crowd noise because we're on the road. And that, that whooping sent most of those fans home. Like, they didn't want to be there for the trophy presentation, which we had to endure last time.
Yeah.
And just a couple other funny things about it. Like, I've honestly been on cloud nine since then. It's cool thinking like we'll get a Smokies ring. I was wearing this hat, so I got to make sure that I don't wear this too much because I don't want to. I want it to stay fresh, like sometimes I'll wear hats and when I jog and stuff, and then they end up in the trash, So I've tried to be careful with it, but winning it there was cool because it's 40 minutes from my house, and then I thought it was funny that our former director of corporate sales is the GM there now, yeah. Steve Rice, our buddy. We all love Steve, by the way. So he's on like the wrong side back-to-back years. And I can remember, I think it was Fuzzy or Jeremy Bowler, one of those two guys that work with us. They're going, now we're going to win because Bryce is going to miss out twice. How funny is that?
Wow. In the Bryce Bowl there. And it's just like so funny how it ended up like that, where
Bryce Bowl
watch us lose at home, and he watches his new team lose at home.
Yeah, so. I could sit here and talk about this. I mean, maybe this is what we should just talk about. Great job with the free beer night promotion for both playoff games too. I know that's a Tim Volk idea, and it's a great idea. You're out there executing it, but fans can't get enough of free beer night.
No, it definitely makes everything an added bonus. And, it's an extra little layer of, oh, yeah, this is great. We should come to the game. You know what? They need us. They need us to come cheer on the Smokies, and they need us to drink this beer. So,
yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I love that. Our fans are awesome, man. And it's like,
and we had a couple of Smokies fans make the drive down to Pensacola.
I know.
See the championship. And the thing that I thought was fun was how the players and the celebration took place down there, so all the fans could see. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I don't know what the I don't know what the game plan was, why they didn't do it in the locker room, why they did it in the dugout. But it was great, because on the radio broadcast, I was disappointed that Richie couldn't come. I mean, like, I wanted Richie to be there. And then we had the dual wireless mics, and we could have, when the game ended, We should probably post that somewhere too, where people can go back and listen to the post game, because we have it all on radio, and we have it archived. Anyway, something happened, and Rory couldn't host from the studio, and Ben Slotnick got sick.
Of course.
And yeah, of course, like championship, right? And so Richie had to stay in Knoxville, which he did a great job. I mean, it ended up working out perfect, right? Because Rory got there, he just couldn't be there at the beginning. And if we would have had a little bit, if it would have been a little closer, we could have figured out a way to, or if the Smokies would have lost, then Richie could have came down. I think he was going to do that, but he couldn't be there on Tuesday. And so he's back at the studio. And then Rory got there and ended up helping him when he ended up getting free from his other job. And we just coordinated it, man. Like I had a thing in my ear, and I go down on the field and I'm just grabbing people. I wish I would have talked to BJ Murray. I couldn't find him down there. And it's one of those things where you're walking around and people are celebrating, and you're just trying to grab people. Talk to Andy Weber, someone I just like a lot. It's just a person, Owen Casey's awesome, man. His parents, great people we've gotten to know over the course of the summer. Kevin Graver, who is just like Mr. Positivity. We make fun of that, but we love him, man. Yeah. You couldn't have. Yeah. Great dude, right?
Yeah. The guy is just like always excited to see you, and he doesn't even know who you are. You go up to him, he's like, "Hey, brother, wicked day, eh?" Because like he's from Massachusetts, the Baltimore. It's just like,
right.
Like, wow, who are you? Like,
who is this fella? He's he as we kind of like recap the season, you couldn't have put, I don't think, anyone else into that role after Michael Ryan left and find the success that he found. And it's because he's so positive. It's just this massive amount of positivity. And I think all of them, I think everyone, he just wins everyone over with his positivity. He did me, he did the team, you too. I mean, all of us, so for someone that we didn't know too well, in June, when he became interim manager and then eventually stayed for the entire season, he was just great to talk to at that moment and all year long. His positivity rubbed off on all of us. I think that's one of the most important traits that you have with anybody, is you just want positive energy.
Here's a question. So with him, if you guys didn't know, we had a manager earlier in the year, Michael Ryan. Things took a turn, and we had to get KG as the new skipper. Now, where did he come from? Like, what was he doing in April or in May? How long has he been with the Chicago Cubs, and what was he doing before joining the Smokies?
He was the I think the Cubs field coordinator. So he would travel around and just basically, do. And I don't want to say he's like the boss of the minor leagues, but he's the guy that kind of oversees all the different teams. And so, but he used to manage, and he was telling me this, like he spent a lot of time in amateur ball, in high school, won a lot of championships, and then did some college stuff. So he had an extensive background, just not in pro ball, and what you got to do as an organization is you want to try to have a balance of guys who have big league experience, because then they can teach. There's stuff that we just wouldn't know if we didn't play in the big leagues that they know, it's just the way it is. Like we're never going to know what it's like to be a big league player because we're not one. Right.
Yeah.
But then there's stuff that, like you can pass on and teach, just by being a good educator of the game. You might know the game, been around it your whole life, and you can pass on stuff. So there's a balance there. And he had a track record of success wherever he's been, and I'm sure it's that positivity, like he just and also making the clubhouse comfortable. It's that's another part of it too. You don't, in baseball, if you get real tight, then it's hard to perform. Teams that play tight don't win a lot. It's the teams that just go out there like they have nothing to lose that seem to win games, you know. But the ironic part about this whole season, which I could have never have scripted, is, and it's really its own tale. Championship seasons are their own thing, right? There's every championship season has that, you know, that the things that made that team champions. Do you know where I'm going with this? But the thing
yeah.
Cheddar Bob. I mean, who would have ever thought that Cheddar Bob from the kitchen was going to be a bat boy, and that he was kind of the guy who really relaxed the team. Like, they loved having him. I mean, I want to say he was kind of like a bat boy mascot, you know, like that. That just got everybody loose, and they enjoyed having him down there, and you know, and giving tips on.
Now, hold on. You're giving him you're really excited to share it, but you're doing injustice about like telling us who Cheddar Bob is. You know, like this is a dude.
Yeah, paint this.
This is a guy, and you know, he's never played baseball before, and with the season coming to an end, you know, a lot of our game day staff. Especially, you know, for being a bat boy, you know, these are younger kids.
Right.
These are kids that are in school. So with our season getting pushed into September, the kids are back in school, and it's tough to find these positions like bat boy. So we would have to pull people, you know, left and right. Maybe has to be like an usher one day, preferably maybe like a younger usher. Sometimes it's one of our like operations interns. But all those interns are gone now too. So we had to put in a grown man to be Bat Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes by the name Cheddar Bob. Why, Mick?
Yeah, because he looks like the Cheddar Bob character from the Eminem movie 8 Mile.
8 Mile. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. And he's also, what would you say? Like, he's like 5'3" or something, 5'2". I mean, he's not a very tall guy.
Not the tallest adult male.
And then watching him like in full uniform with cleats on and batting gloves out of his pocket and eye black and all that stuff, it was just fantastic.
There was a game late in the year where our president, Chris Allen, was like right next to me up in the press box. And he looks down on the field. He's like, "Is that Cheddar Bob?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, I had to literally took off my glasses, cleaned them off, looked, and I'm like, I think it is. That is him, you know? And that was like, you know, it was like 5-6 games left in the regular season.
Yeah.
And the players just fell in love with the guy, right?
Yeah, they did. But stuff like that, though, that brings a team together. I'll tell you what's really funny is that I put a microphone down by the dugout. Well, I do every game, but I don't normally do it on the road. But I did for that championship series, and I did against Chattanooga, against the Lookouts. And pregame, I'm like testing the mic and I'm listening. And so I got it turned up, and I hear this guy talking to this kid, and he's like, "Hey," I forget the kid's name. "Hey, Johnny, are you bat boying today?" And I hear the kid go, "No, they brought their own bat boy." And that was Cheddar Bob. Like, and then I look over and I see Cheddar Bob like chewing on sunflower seeds, like on the corner of the dugout, you know, like full uniform, like spitting seeds. I'm like, man, this is our year. What the funny part about it is last year, Pensacola had Wade Vatican, who was a longtime bat boy with the Mobile Bay Bears. And so when we lost to them in 2011, there's Wade, you know, and then we lost to Pensacola last year. Wade was down there in the dugout, and he was kind of their mascot, you know, like he was a guy who had special needs and was just fantastic. Wayne Randazzo, who was the Bay Bears broadcaster at the time, in 2011, and now he's the voice of the Angels on TV. he and I got together and we're like, hey, we should get him into the Southern League Hall of Fame. The guy was just like a fixture. And it was like, if you're going to have a Hall of Fame of people that are not just players, we just felt like that Wade should be in it, right? And so
he certainly has a face and a personality, and you know what? He has a more recognizable face for those fans than any other player would, right?
Yeah, right. And he got in, and that was really cool. I don't even know. I've never even talked to him about it, about being the force that, first nominated him. And then, I was on the board, and making sure that he got a good shake, and getting in. I thought that was cool. I didn't want him to beat us last year in the championship. Right. And it was like, this was like our guy, like we had a guy now, like that. Wade would go out there, he'd wear like a mask and a cape, and he'd ride the bats back, like, and you couldn't help laughing. And, and he was just something so positive about having him down there. And it was the same thing with Cheddar. I mean, he just got down there and there's just something positive about it. And so I thought it was awesome. Who knows?
What is Cheddar Bob's real name?
Chris White, maybe.
That's
Chris White. Yeah, no, it's Cheddar Bob. I don't think he wants to ever be known as Chris White. He's Cheddar Bob. He's introduced himself to me, many of occasion, to say that he is a follower of the broadcast when he's, taking his smoke break and stuff. So
yes, right.
Man, I'll tell you, what a run.
When he was, invited, you know what? You're coming with us on the road to chat. You're coming with us to Pensacola. What do you think he said?
They were probably like, you got to come, like I know Detrell, who's the guy in charge of the clubhouses, was kind of influential on that too. And, it just worked, I mean, like I can't really explain it. I wish we would have had a Cheddar Bob in 2009 and 2010, just to get the guys loose and laughing and realizing that it's a fun game. And that's all it is. It's a game. We get so wrapped up in the results. Sometimes it's like just nice to, kind of to have those people that make you laugh and that relax you there to, to do those things. So
it's a kid's game, at the end of the day. So everyone's really lucky to be able to play it as an adult, and having somebody like that around kind of brings you back down to earth. Like, okay, we're just here, playing a little pitch and catch. So
yeah, the thing with the players is that they're all hoping to get to the big leagues, and some of them will, and some of them won't. I think this is a roster where they'll have quite a few of these guys will get a chance at some point. Maybe not with the Cubs, but with a franchise. But for the most part, unfortunately, careers are short. This may be the only championship. This may be the last championship that these guys ever have. And it'll be years from now that they'll realize how special it was to be on this team and to win, and that's just coming from, me that's been around the block a few times. But it's just crazy to think. And then take the fact that it took us 45 years to win. And I'm so glad that we won one in the stadium before, we moved to Knoxville, and all the great fans that we have that live and die with the team. I mean, there's just so many things. Randy Boyd, it's great to know that Randy's going to get that championship. He's our biggest fan, at our front office. And Webby
players, Webby players, they got a little bit of a winning mentality. It's been a while since they've lost,
Yeah.
The Smokies won the championship this year, but South Bend won the championship last year. Mm-hmm. They were on that team. You know?
2019 they won too. So
winning is something that some of these players, like, that's all they've done so far.
Yeah, I think the Cubs I think the Cubs at the big league level have a dilemma right now. I don't know the direction that they're going. When you sign Dansby Swanson to a 7-year contract, and then you sign, Ian Happ to, he's got, I think, at least 2 more years on his deal, and then Seiya Suzuki. And you look at the amount of talent that they have that is going to be pushing to get to the big leagues here soon. There's guys on this roster and in AAA that need to be in the big leagues next year. That are you're just going to have to get them up there. And how do you do that? And the dilemma is, what are you looking for? And how do you? Because when they won in 2016, we knew it was going to be a youth movement, right? And so in 2013 and 14 and 15, it was all about when those guys are ready, there's a spot, right? Now, I don't know really. You traded Nelson Velasquez, who's going to end up really making you pay for that because there's no spot for him to learn in right field. And then he goes and hits a bunch of home runs with the Royals at like a breakneck pace. And he's just going to keep improving. You got Pete Crow Armstrong and Jonathan Perlaza and Alexander Canario and eventually Kevin Alcantara and Owen Casey and who knows who else. I mean, there's just there's going to be pushing. There's only 3 outfield spots. You got 2 guys signed long-term, right? So what's that going to look like here in the future? But the Cubs would be fools not to take advantage of the fact that they've developed winning in their system along with prospects. Even when the Cubs won the World Series in 2016, and they did it with guys from their system, but also they bought winning. They went out and got John Lester, who had won World Series with the Red Sox, and they went out and got Ben Zobrist, who's was a star with Kansas City and won the World Series the year before, and John Lackey, who won with the Angels and the Red Sox. And when those guys were gone, all of a sudden the winning stopped.
Yep.
That you had good players, and you're going, why are the Cubs not winning? And it was like every year you got further and further away from the World Series. You got further and further. Even David Ross had won other places, and he was your backup catcher. Now he's your manager. But I feel like part of that is you develop winning in the minor leagues. Those guys came up, and you would think that they would have won everywhere, but they didn't. They didn't win in AAA. They didn't win in AA. They might have won some in the lower levels, but it wasn't consistent, and it didn't feel like winning was part of the culture. It was just really good players. We're going to push them onto the big leagues, and then they won one. With these guys, they're hungry to win. I tell you, that to me is something that I think you can't teach. I think you just you have to instill that. And it's like, what are you going to turn a switch and go, hey, we care about winning when we get to the big leagues, but we didn't care in the minor leagues. And the Cubs do a lot of things because of analytics and philosophy that prevent the teams from winning, but the guys refuse to let that cost them winning. Graber said in the post game that everyone on the team wanted to win. Talked to Blake Whitney, and he's like, we wanted to win this. We beat Rocket City in what I thought was one of the best series I've ever seen the Smokies play. That's in my time. It was the best series. It was the best 2 games back to back that they ever played. Just the environment, the intensity, the team that they were playing was the best team in the league, and they ended up beating them twice, facing elimination on the road, and it was crazy. And they were so excited about that it was like they kind of felt like they won, even though they didn't. And then they ended up coming up short. So they really wanted to win this year. But you mentioned the other levels too. And we'll see if that continues to Iowa. It's tough to win there because if anyone does really well, they're going to go to the big leagues and maybe stay there. But I guess that's a dilemma we all have. So, but I feel like this could be if these guys end up staying together and getting to the big leagues, this could be a run where the Cubs are winning for a long time.
And it's been overdue. And it's so interesting, the thing that you bring up about Blake Whitney. He was kind of the go-to guy when it came to relievers this year for the Tennessee Smokies. And he had a brief stint the year before with the Smokies, and he was actually in a very interesting spot. He was the guy that came in and gave up that grand slam. Was that correct?
Yeah.
So,
and then he came back this year. Well, he gave up the grand slam last year that lost it. He came in to game 2 this year with the bases loaded and got us out of a jam.
It's so weird how things,
I know. And he said like that, he was fired up about it. He thought about it all year. He was one of the MVPs of the team because of the fact that the Cubs really are not going to let their starters go more than 4 or 5 innings. It's like you burn the bullpen up, and you got to have that guy that can come in and get you 2 or 3 innings of work. And he did that a lot. He was so effective this year. So I really like him and what he brings to the table. There's a lot of likable guys on the team, but it was kind of one of those side storylines that you look back at and you go, man, that's crazy. You got to worry. You gave up the grand slam that lost the game. I mean, it wasn't a walk-off, but that put it out of reach. And then you come back this year and there's the bases loaded. It's like, nope, you guys are done. And I think he got the same guy to ground out, Kobe
That's
Fletcher.
So weird. So weird. And it's funny because at the beginning of this year, I had to do a commercial shoot at Academy Sports and Outdoors, something similar to Dick's Sporting Goods, store like that, a rival of theirs. And we did a shoot with Ben Brown and Blake Whitney. And Ben Brown, his whole portion of the video was him talking about his mother, because it was a video for Mother's Day. And, he was like, all right, well, I'm going to be talking about my mom and how she always drove me to baseball games, other sporting events, his siblings driving to their sporting events, like just being a great mother, and just like supporting me and taking me wherever I needed to go. And, the commercial one was great with Ben. And thank goodness we did Mother's Day for him, because he left the team maybe a week later. Like, he got sent up to Iowa and we never saw him again, just because of how talented he really was. And so Blake, he had Father's Day for his video, and he just talked about going out on the boat with his dad and just fishing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he didn't talk about baseball at all. He just talked about spending time with his dad and how great it was. But we had to try to pry it out of him, actually. Like, this is one of the nicest guys that I've met, in my minor league career. You talk to the guy, he'll talk to you about whatever you want, baseball, football, chewing gum, whatever it is. But then we put the camera on him and he kind of clammed up a bit. And it was just like, we got to get him out of his comfort zone a little bit. Let's just start having him talk about whatever. And he just talked about his dad and fishing. And that's what, got him a little more comfortable. And it was kind of endearing, because who would have known that, at the beginning of the year when we filmed this video, this guy is going to be the go-to reliever on our team. And I just kind of have a lot of joy in that that was who we had come out and just shoot this commercial. So
yeah, I got to know his dad too over the course of the season, Tom, and good guy, great family. And, someone that you kind of get to know some of the families because they watch the games every night or listen on the apps and stuff, but good people. And, it just couldn't happen to a better group. Maybe we were supposed to wait 45 years for this team to win. The other thing is I appreciate Jared Banner, who is the guy who oversees the minor leagues, for making sure that we had the type of roster that could win too, and kind of got to be around him a little bit after we won. And, and I like him. He's a nice guy. And, he was excited, it's like, I don't know you, but I'm giving you a hug, man. Thank you. Thanks, man. I just love all you guys,
yeah. When I
such
saw
a special moment.
When I saw the roster update of how we added, the cavalry, as you said, Triantos, Ballesteros, Franklin Alcantara, saw the quick name list, and I'm like, okay, some of these names look familiar. And then I saw you brought up earlier, Detrell, clubhouse manager. It's like, hey, what's the quick story on all these guys? He's like, they're all prospects. I'm like, Okay, yeah, but like, how good? He's like, they're all top 30 prospects. They're all good. And I'm like, all right, I dig that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love the Graber did a great job of platooning left field too, which is, you know, not like anyone really had a huge series, but just to make it that much tougher, you know, like Pagan was out there, um, you know, platooning, and you know, in Franklin, it was Pagan and Franklin, one right-handed, one left-handed, going back and forth in that spot, and you know, they played great defense, and they put the ball in play. And you know, I feel bad for Jordan Wogu, who was the left fielder all year, but he just couldn't put the ball in play. I mean, he was like striking out at over 40%. So you know, that's a lot of missed opportunities. You know, not to hit the ball. It's something that
and
he's going to
you know,
have to work on between now and next year. But you know, that the entire field was full of players, and then you had Andy Weber, kind of like the, you know, the schoolmaster. You know what I mean? Like, he'd been around a while, but he's playing shortstop. So you got your vet at short, and by the end of the season, Pablo Aliendo, your catcher, had, you know, he put in his time, you know, and kind of took his game up to another level. I thought, honestly, I thought everyone had a really good series in both series.
I feel like Aliendo really kind of embodied the team by the end of the season. This was a guy that was on the opening day roster,
Mm-hmm.
and you saw him get better as the season went along. He cracked, you know, the top 30 prospects for the Cubs organization halfway through the year, and the dude dyes his hair red, you know, for the
Yeah.
championship, and he's the one, you know, dead center with the whole team out there on the mound with the big flag and the trophy. He's the one holding the trophy over his head. So
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of loved how he was the one that had that trophy. And he's the one that's going to be in those photos for years to come. For people that
Yeah.
don't even know who Pablo Aliendo is 40 years from now, it's like, well, that guy seems like he was pretty good, and he had a lot of heart, a lot of hustle. He had walk-off wins. He was always the guy with the Gatorade jug, dumping it on people. He was one pulling people's shirts off for you know, the water cooler at the end of the game. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
fun.
it was awesome, man. I just, like, how do you celebrate something like this? You know, I mean, we got some plans, and you know, those will be kind of coming out here in the future, but it's so significant to us just because we haven't had one, and him and the way that he loved to play the game, and the enthusiasm that he brought definitely was a big part of it. I mean, just to, you know, forget about the prospect or not prospect, you know, just to have people there that are like, we're going to win this thing, you know. It was so cool to hold the championship trophy, you know, after the
Something that you never
game.
assume would happen. So
I was like down there doing my post game, and like, let's get a picture with the trophy, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, we're holding the trophy right now, you know. It's wow. After all those years of chasing it, and I've said this too, you know, you know, in the grand scheme of things, in the world of sports, winning a AA championship, you know, it's not significant. I mean, if Tennessee won a national championship, it's a national thing, you know, or an international. If the Cubs win the World Series, you know, I mean, they have parades, and obviously when they won theirs, it was 100 and some years. So it was double the time plus that the Smokies hadn't won. So double 45, and then add some to it, right? 108. But in our world, it's significant, you know. In our world, it means a lot. And to the people that are watching this and that are part of our world, you get why it is so cool, you know. And so it's like, it fulfills this chase that we've been on for so long too, you know, for all of us, like getting into the playoffs, and then, you know, getting a chance to win, and then getting to celebrate that. And I love the timing of it because, you know, next year will be the last season at Smoky Stadium before we go downtown. And so it's just a kind of a good way to like cap off the years that we've been there. We have a championship and celebrate the stadium at the same time.
hey, you know, you ask President Chris Allen, you ask Randy Boyd, owner of the team. It's like, this was awesome, but like, how great would it be to cap off Smoky Stadium's history with another championship next year?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's possible because I mean, we'll find out. But the tough part is we'll have a lot of the guys, the South Bend guys will all be there. And then who knows who else, depending on what the Cubs do in the offseason. But what's crazy about this is that they were in back-to-back championships. The other team had a lot of the same players. The Smokies really didn't have any of the same players. Blake Whitney, and I think Hunter Biggie might have been on the team last year. Walker Powell, I think, was on the team last year. But there wasn't many.
Andy Weber,
Yeah, Andy Weber got hurt last year.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, like, was he back, and was he even, was he even a factor, like we lost all of our guys. Like, you go around the diamond and it was an entirely different from every single position player was different except Weber, who had gotten hurt the year before. And then the pitching the same way. I mean, Cade Horton was our ace, right? And he was in college, I think, right? Or maybe he had just gotten drafted out of college. Matt Shaw was in college for sure.
Right.
So, I mean, you go through and it's like, man, it's an entirely different team, So what, is that going to be the same scenario that we're looking at this year? Do you have enough prospects, good players to make another run with totally different guys? Or maybe
you tell us, Mick, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'd have to see what we got, I mean, maybe you could. I mean, maybe what you do is you win the first half because you got all those guys, and then you kind of do what Pensacola did last year. They won the first half, and then they weren't really good in the second half, and then they got hot again in the playoffs, right? So maybe that's a scenario. I mean, it would be great to this doesn't get old, I mean, you can win back-to-back titles. You got to win the first one. And maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe we're going to go on a run of winning here to make up for those 45 years of losing all the time.
Pretty nice. Pretty nice.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to the most when it comes to like the championship? And how's the swag?
Hey, dude, the thing that I'm excited about is all of the fun giveaways that we're going to do next year. Something that I haven't been able to do before. I was talking to the general manager of the Johnson City Doughboys just this morning, Patrick, and he was like, yeah, and then the Doughboys also won the Appalachian League Championship this year. And he's worked for other teams before the Doughboys, of course. And he's like, so, you guys are looking into, a replica ring giveaway. And I'm like, yeah, I put some feelers out there. And he's like, yeah, how are the prices compared to a couple of years ago? And I'm like, I can't tell you, dude. I've never bought a replica ring giveaway. You have all these championships from previous teams and everything. I don't know what that's like. So I get to dive into that whole area now this year. So, big plans for this year, trying to get some quotes of a championship ring giveaway. Obviously, we're going to do some type of a t-shirt or maybe a hat giveaway with the Champions logo on there. Also kind of thinking about maybe doing our mascot, Homer Hound, holding up the trophy as a bobblehead. So could be fun. A replica trophy giveaway. There's so many different things that we could do based off of that and just create a lot of stir. And I'll tell you what, graphics moving forward for next season, you better believe everything's going to have 2023 champions, defending champions on there. So
yeah, got to do a Hollywood Pete bobblehead though. I mean, I know when we get to staff retreat, we'll be talking about this.
There's big plans on that. I already have a little bit of a design on it and everything. So I want to show you before we debut it, but I'm pretty excited about it.
No, cool. Yeah. I mean, I figured that would be one. I'm expecting him to be someone that does some things in the big leagues next year.
And he got that taste in the majors this year. So.
He did. Didn't go too well. But hopefully it will next year. So, yeah, it's exciting, man. I mean, George Arley was crying during the end of the game. Like our public address announcer, he's texting me. He's texting me during the game. Man. He's crying. He's emotional. He said he's emotional with the big lead. And I'm like, well, just don't get emotional until we win it, please, because you'll be emotional for another reason if we blow this thing.
Yeah.
And baseball, it could happen. I mean, it didn't, but it could, right?
Thank goodness it was just happy tears.
Yeah, happy tears. Yeah, I know. Well, anything else that you want to talk about on the show, or is that it for us today?
I think this is a good place to leave off on right now. With me being gone for a while, it feels good to be back in the saddle again, and we'll get going back here for another weekly podcast of Wild Pitches. If you haven't done so already, feel free to subscribe to us here on YouTube or on Spotify.